Continuing on user stories, today we're going to talk about the 3 C's: cart, conversation, confirmation. In this video, I'm not only trying to revisit the history of how the user story structure came into being, what popularized it, why it made sense back in the 1990s, but also simultaneously trying to understand what are the tools, artifacts, opportunities, and events that Agile offers, or Scrum offers us today that will help us ensure that in essence, we're still doing the right thing. The most interesting part about user stories is it was not originally created as a part of Scrum. We have read that we address these items as product backlog items, PBIs, but not as user stories. The term user story was popularized back in the 1990s by Kent Beck, who came up with this idea as a part of the extreme programming in his book. So later, when Agile came into being and extreme programming somehow came under the umbrella of Agile methodology, we also inherited user stories, and now that is one of the most popular ways of writing PBIs. A little bit on the background, in the 1990s, Connextra was one of the earliest adapters of extreme programming. And for one of the products, they did have a box or suggestion box, kind of where people would contribute on what features or upgrades would be really cool for the product. And then there would be this person who would go through all of them, all these suggestions, and kind of reach out to each of them to understand why they think that would be such a cool feature on an upgrade and what value it would derive. Over time, Rachel Davis, she came up with this cool idea that how to write a good user story, or a story at that point of time, because Kent Beck did not use the term user story. He used to call them stories. And the template was like, as a type of user, I want to do something so that I can get some benefit and also come with it a good story title. So this is a card that they shared later and around so that the people, whoever was making the contribution, at least had this much of information, right? Like who the persona, what feature, and why the business value was already in the card, so that the conversation was much more meaningful and it helped to take it forward. Kent's original ideas was to use index cards to write features or stories, and they were just the right size to capture the basic information in the as I want and so that I may format, as well as you could reverse it and you add more information for the conversations. So they were the right size so that you can stack them. That's your product backlog. You can prioritize them by ordering them correctly. That's how you can prioritize them. Again, if you reference it today, that's kind of your draft user story, where you kind of have the title as well as the description. And stacking all the index cards together, that gives you your today's product backlog. The second C is conversation. So today, the conversation might be something where you go and share what your thoughts are, like what you were thinking, and the other person listens to it and kind of asks questions on it, tries to understand and gets a better understanding on what your idea was. And so there'll be some back and forth till we have a shared understanding. In my life as a product owner, this looks very similar to what a backlog refinement session would look like, where we basically, sometimes I'm just come with an idea that I thought this would be great, but I really don't know whether this works or how to achieve it, and what are the options, how we can to do, or what are the probable solutions. And that gets my team engaged, and we have more back and forth, and we discuss and come up with a solution, or more than one solution that could probably work. So my work is set. I need to go back and capture more information, get more clarity on what the ask was and which solution would be a better fit in terms of effort and the time that we need to be ready or to go to market. Sprint planning is another opportunity where we will have a lot of conversations. So even though my team usually has seen my PBIs or user stories way in advance, before we pick it up for sprint planning, there is still some questions that we answer so that we can have a better idea on the estimate. Breaking down into tasks is easier. So yes, I see myself having this conversation today in my sprint planning sessions. Well, talking of conversations, I'm sure most of us have seen this classic Luke Barret illustration. Even Jeff Payton refers to this in his book, User Story Mapping. So it's basically, you see the first picture is where I have written, suppose I'm the PO and I have written down a sentence, this is the feature that I want. The other person reads it and says, okay, I understand. And then a different idea starts forming in their head. There's a third person there. And that person too reads it and says, yeah, I understand totally. I agree with you. So even though all three of us have kind of agreed on, after reading whatever was written, we have formed very different ideas. Then comes the conversation, the second C. We start asking each other questions. I start answering. There are things I don't know, the things that even the PO may find out while talking in terms of feature. And while we get the technical details or the technical insights in, we also have a QA person there. They might be also asking more questions in detail. So gradually, while in this back and forth, while we are having this conversation, different ideas starts forming in our head. And that might be different from what was initially written as a one-liner or two lines by the product owner. At the end of the process, we all have a shared understanding of the requirement. And it is very important we all are on the same page. Confirmation, that is the third C. Together, we have to agree on how we'll confirm that the software or the increment is actually done. This is where I feel we are developing the acceptance criteria. It could be bullet points. It doesn't matter whether you're writing gherkin or you're writing simple bullets. All that matters is we understand that how the functionality will be tested. What are the criteria it has to meet so that as a team, as a product owner, we can agree that it is actually done. Jeff Payton also speaks of two additional C's in his book, User Story Mapping. The first one, or the fourth one, is construction, where he says building the software based on the shared understanding. I feel at this stage, construction stage is something similar when we are within the sprint. So we are meeting, and the event that would be supporting is a daily scrum when we were meeting and sharing updates. Because that's the shortest feedback loop that we have. And also, and we will be working out of the sprint backlog at this point of time. The last C that he suggests is consequences. So building the software, then inspecting it first with the team and then with the stakeholders and then thereafter with the customers and users. I feel that today Agile offers us this opportunity to inspect and adapt in the sprint review, where we go over the product with the stakeholders, collect their feedback, their thoughts on it, and I'll try to make adjustments to the product backlog if needed so that we stay on track to meet the product goal. Sprint retro is also relevant in this because where the team, this is very close group, that the team kind of reflects along with other things on how we did in terms of the people, process, as well as on the product. That's all on the 3 C's, and I hope we can now have a shared understanding on what they stand for. And leave a comment. Should I call this video 3 C's or the 5 C's of a user story? Thank you for watching this video. If you like our conversations and the topics that we deep dive into, then please subscribe to our channel and also hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when we are posting new content.